Test 1 2 test 1 2 test 1 2 test 1 2 test test. It's on a little delay, so are you hearing that from my microphone? Oh, I'm going right now. Yeah, I'm hearing it. We have to figure out what. Yeah, I couldn't hear it on the last time. I might just have this very low. Test 1 2 test 1 2 test 1 2. Is that working? It was really quiet, but it did, yeah. So when Adam gets here, I'm gonna try to figure out a way we can pump up the volume a little bit on here because I have it cranked all the way. So, can you play it again? Can you replay it? I can do a soundtrack again. Okay. It's just delayed. That's why it's like you'll see me if you look at my screen, you can see me in like 2 minutes walk across and then go. Check 1 2 check 1 2 check 1 2 check. And again, did they say what time we can be here so we can run through this? Can we get here at like 5:15?
Check, check. Let's see. Check, check. Okay, it is coming up here.
And I had it pretty
At
good
least. Check, check. Check, check. 1, 2, check. Okay. Check, check. 1, 2.
Hello, 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 hello.
Audio test.
Did you get anything else?
Test, audio test.
It's like 20 to 30 seconds. You heard it, but you didn't? Do you have it muted on your Zoom thing?
I'm gonna try one.
Okay.
Tell me what.
Go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Test, test. Good afternoon, everyone on Zoom. Just letting you know that we have not started yet, so there's no audio because the event has not started. So just hang on and we'll get started shortly.
All right. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's community forum, which is an opportunity to meet one of Salem's 3 finalists for superintendent. My name is Heidi Garino, and I am a Salem resident, and I'm working with the school district to facilitate the search process. So I'm going to just talk through a couple of quick slides just to introduce the process, and then we'll meet Jorge Allen and get started. So we have just a couple of goals for tonight. Obviously, we want to learn more about Dr. Allen, who's here with us and has been here all day. We want to hear his perspectives on some of the big issues in Salem. We want to give people who are with us tonight a chance to share some of their questions. We've also been collecting questions over the last several days, so we've got about 10 that I'm going to start us off with. And then in the end, we're going to ask everyone who's here with us tonight or watching online to provide some feedback. We really want to hear from people, their reaction to our three candidates. So every day for the next 3 days, we're going to be asking people to give us their feedback on what they hear and what they think. This is our timeline. So this is an aggressive but achievable timeline to get Salem to a point where we have a new superintendent by the beginning of August. Dr. Allen is here. He's our first of 3 finalists who will be with us this week. So over the next 3 days, we'll have 3 of these community forums, 1 each night. And then the week of July 6th, we'll have 3 public interviews with the school committee. So Dr. Allen will be back with us on July 7th, meeting with the school committee. And just a few reminders for tonight. We invite everyone to listen with curiosity, with an open mind, to obviously let Dr. Allen answer every question fully, make space for all of the voices to be heard, and to, as much as possible, just keep the reason we're here today at the center of your mind. Really stay focused on the students, the educators, and the community. And with that, I would like to introduce everyone to Dr. Jorge Allen. And I do have a quick bio that I would just like to share about him. Jorge Allen grew up in Panama City, where he completed his elementary education in the public school system. After high school, he migrated to Mexico with his family, completed his undergraduate studies in Monterrey, Mexico, where he studied veterinary medicine during the week and took education classes on the weekends. He came to the United States through a teacher exchange program and studied at Christopher Newport University in Virginia. He is a first-generation college graduate. He is an immigrant, and he is the father of 3 sons. He's also spent more than 2 decades in the Massachusetts schools fighting for the children and families that our public school systems were not always built to serve. Dr. Allen is an advisor to Black and Latino students throughout his career. He's helped young people break stereotypes about which languages they were supposed to take in high school. Earlier in his career, when he was working at Lincoln Sudbury, he increased enrollment in German. And in Andover, he increased enrollment in Chinese and French among students whose families had been told that those languages were not for them. Today, Jorge serves as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Wellesley Public Schools, where he works at the intersection of language, identity, and belonging. He previously led World and Multilingual Learner Education in Andover, where he helped create their Global Pathways Scholar Program. He is a proud member of the Black, Latino, and immigrant communities and comes to Salem tonight as someone who knows what it means to be far from home, to navigate the school system as a parent in a language and culture that is not your own, and who believes that every child deserves a superintendent who sees the family behind them. So with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Allen to Salem. And give you the mic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Heidi. I appreciate the introduction. Good evening, everyone here present via Zoom or TV. Thank you for taking the time to kind of watch and follow this conversation, and I hope will be informative to all of you, and it will give you a glimpse of who I am as a person, as a professional educator. I want to start with something simple. I'm here to listen and learn. I also bring a unique perspective as a West Indian, as a descendant of West Indian workers who built the Panama Canal, and as an immigrant who sent his 3 African American boys to the public school system in Massachusetts. I grew up in Panama City, in public schools not unlike the ones your children attend, and I know what it means to sit in a public school classroom and wonder whether the educators in charge actually see you as a student, as a person. As Heidi mentioned, I have worked, and I'm very proud of working at the intersection between language, identity, and belonging, because I believe that these 3 things are key to whether a child thrives or remains invisible. Language, because every child deserves to maintain and become proficient in their family and community language. Identity, because every child deserves to know that their culture, history, and family are seen as valuable assets. And belonging, because none of this matters if a child walks into a building every day and does not feel truly respected and valued there. To our families whose preferred language is Spanish, los veo y estoy aquí para ustedes. What draws me to Salem is your commitment to serving a community where nearly half of your students are Hispanic or Latino, and nearly 1 in 6 are English language learners. Your strategic plan, built on elevating learning, empowering educators, centering belonging, and strengthening foundational systems, reflects the comprehensive, equity-driven approach to district leadership that has defined my career. However, I am personally drawn to this community courage in naming your new school after Sarah Parker Remond. Your public and visible community courage has afforded me, a descendant of enslaved Africans, the opportunity to learn about this Salem resident. This abolitionist gave her first public address against slavery at age 16, the age of our 10th graders. And what matters to me, what makes me the right leader for Salem at this moment is not a title or a plan. It is a track record of fostering relational leadership that sustains transformative work over time. For me, Salem is not at the beginning of something. You are in the middle of something extraordinary. A new high school, a 10-year innovation agenda. You do not need someone to start something new. You need someone who knows how to walk alongside a community that is already building something great. I'm here to begin earning your trust by how I show up tonight and every night after this, if given the privilege of serving Salem. I know what it means to navigate systems that were not built with your family in mind, whether due to race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. And I have one question I want to carry into our conversation tonight. What things should the next superintendent continue to do, and what new ideas do you have to make you feel more supported? This is my North Star for this evening. I'm here to listen and learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I have about 10 questions that we've collected from the community. So over the last several days, we had a survey open, and we had about 50 people submitted questions. And so we've gone through them and pulled them together into a couple of key themes. So I'm going to share these questions with you. You actually just answered the first one, so I'm going to jump to number 2. But just know that these questions represent the collective questions that the community is wondering. So I'm going to start with academic excellence and student success. Tell us how you would strengthen student achievement across the district and ensure that all students have access to rigorous, engaging, and relevant learning experiences that truly prepare them for success in college and careers and life after high school. What's your approach?
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned in my introduction, I have the fortune of visiting a number of schools this morning, and I have seen already some of the elements of this question in display. I was truly impressed by the CTE programming at the high school, and in fact, when I have the student forum, one of my questions to the student was, what are you more proud of to be a Salem high school student? And to that question, I mean, the students, a number of students kind of string the same response. They mentioned the CTE program because of giving them really hands-on opportunity. They see the practicality of their learning, and it just gives them a different experience in the educational journey. I see that type of experiences very valuable, and it was beautiful today because I was able to start also with the early childhood center, whereas the students were having, I think the center received a grant for a garden, and one of the teachers, or I think garden coach or coordinator, showed me their garden, and they were really excited about seeing students getting dirty. And I think that at that age, that experience that is hands-on, that is real, that is in touch with the outdoors is part of what makes the learning experience relevant and is developmentally appropriate. So I think I was able to see the art going all the way from early childhood all the way to the high school, in which already Salem is been very intentional on making their educational experience relevant with career, with post-secondary career opportunities accessible to students. I would like, as a superintendent, to continue fostering and supporting that approach, making sure that there are no barriers that keep students from experiencing that breadth of the curriculum, especially students with individualized educational plans, that they have full access to the curriculum, because a student with an educational plan is just a roadmap of how they should be able to access the breadth of the curriculum and not necessarily be excluded from some of these experiences. So again, circling back to what I said at the beginning, I think that there are a number of things in place already, especially with your standardized testing scores and the solid improvement that you have made regarding your growth percentile. I think that as that journey continues, it's going to realize with higher achievement because data shows that continuous improvement in growth actually translate into achievement. So I personally feel that there are things in place in Salem and they are happening already. So I think it's important for the new superintendent to value those things, respect those things, and really try to sustain them and protect them moving forward.
Thank you very much. So our next question is about equity, inclusion, and belonging, which you spoke to earlier. How would you ensure that every student in Salem, and by every that means really all, including multilingual learners, students with disabilities, immigrant students, LGBTQ students, students from historically marginalized communities, how will you ensure that they all feel valued, supported, and are truly able to thrive? And as part of your answer, we would love if you could share some examples from your own experience.
Thank you. Currently, in my present district, in the last 2 or 3 years, we have been focusing on what is called relationship mapping. That's just a simple exercise in which, at least the way we are starting it, educators, the adults, just kind of plot a dot next to the names of students that they feel that they have a relationship with. It's a way to kind of inventory the landscape of the district as far as like adult perceptions on the sense of belonging. And the end point of this exercise is really driven by the strong belief and the conviction that when every student has a trusted adult, it can really protect and extend their educational outcomes. In that process, I mean, we identify students that are not being recognized by the adults as having a relationship with. The schools kind of gather that data and try to understand who the students are and try to create support systems to make sure that all the students are connected. And then we are doing this with the belief that really drives educational outcome regardless of the membership of the student. When we get it down to the individual level, in that process is also a level of connection with all the identities that we mentioned. So we make sure that our student groups are represented and are connected, and that there's an adult that sees the student not just as a learner, but that sees the student as who they are as a whole person. And the who we are and the identities that we bring in our personality is actually part of of knowing the students in that way. So we are doing little things like, you know, making sure that all teachers greet the students by name at the passing time. At the beginning, some educators were kind of reluctant, feeling that there was just one more busy thing to do. But I have heard, really fulfilling anecdotes when adults say, at first I was kind of reluctant and pushing back to this just simple practice. But then I started kind of realizing how the value of that minute or less than a minute in which I'm really focusing on that student and not focusing on what I had to teach next is so valuable for those relationships. So I think the best approach to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is to make sure that every single student is connected with an adult, is supported by an adult, and is seen and respected by an adult in their school environment. And that's what we're trying to frame our work around that principle.
Thank you very much. The next question is focused on STEM. So I think as you're aware, the Norman H. Reed Trust Foundation is dedicated to advancing excellence in all areas of STEM, and is funding programs and services across the Salem Public Schools, Salem Academy, and LEAP. Last year alone, the Trust provided nearly $1.3 million of support to the Salem Public Schools. And we want to know what your feelings are in relation to STEM. Specifically, what are your short and long-term goals and vision for continuing to foster excellence in STEM education in Salem, while also creating opportunities for Salem school graduates to lead the way in shaping new horizons in science, technology, engineering, and math? So both within the district and out of the district.
My approach regarding STEM and technology and innovation in general is that we need to start with the human aspect. It is important that we help students find their passion, one, identifying their purpose. When students actually find those two things, then I think my approach has been in the districts that I have worked before being here in front of you is how is the passion and the purpose aligned with them trying to solve a problem. So I have led to the creation of what we call a global program in one of my previous districts. And in spite of that experience, the students sign up going into their sophomore year, and they stay in the program for 3 years. we help them identify one of the developmental goals of the UN, that is actually around 16 or 17 goals that they cover different areas, and we try to explain to students that this is basically countries coming together and agreeing that these are the current challenges that we face in the world. So when the students kind of like identify their purpose and the mission, and they try to align it with a real global challenge, that in the solution of that challenge, to solve that problem, that's when tools like STEM approaches, technology, is integrated into that experience. We normally develop that, embedding a requirement for a capstone project, but it all starts with what really drives the student and what they feel is their mission. It's a very similar approach to what some of you might have seen with the civic engagement projects that 8th graders do, and then again is repeating high school. But to the question about how to ensure high quality STEM education and exposure for students, I would take a step back and making sure that students actually find their mission and purpose, and really have them see that technology, STEM, are basically vehicles and tools that we should use for a purpose and a mission. So it's a very civic-driven approach to STEM education, and is more not just in the sense of creating something for the sake of creating something, but it's actually implementing a solution to a real problem.
Thank you. You kind of half answered another question, and so I'm going to put this in as like a part B of the one you just answered. I was going to ask you a question specifically about technology, which you kind of answered, but I wonder if you could speak just a little bit about how you would ensure that digital tools, including but not limited to AI, really are used to enhance student learning without replacing meaningful teacher-student interaction. Could you speak to that a little?
Thank you. So I just completed a fellowship with Latinos for Education, which is an organization that's trying to not just recruit, but really organize Latinos across the state. It was an aspiring leader fellowship, and in our kind of fellowship project, we were divided in small groups. Myself and two of my fellow mates, we developed a final project which was basically a chatbot that could be used for professional development in schools, just to be able to assess the level of literacy that teachers or educators have regarding AI. So my approach to AI and any other developing technology is that first we have the educators, we have to become literate about how we will use that technology in the teaching side. So before we start answering the question of how technology plays a role in the learning side, I personally have tried to flip the model and first try to answer the question, what is the role of technology on the teaching side of the experience? When educators actually are using technology, they can assess how the technology could actually enhance or improve education and teaching, and then that process will kind of lead us to talk about the ethical use of technology that then we would like the students to kind of emulate or follow. That is kind of like a different paradigm, because what we learn in our literary research when we're trying to develop this project in my fellowship is that the likelihood of educators in urban settings is twice unlikely to be exposed to training regarding AI. If the educators are not exposed to it and they're falling behind of their training and exposure to these developing technologies, is guaranteed that also our students are going to fall behind and exacerbate what I call like it's a digital technology divide. So I think the question is, have we normalized the use of technology and AI in the instructional side? Can we see it as enhancing or expanding differentiation, truly creating universal design for learning in the classrooms or not? And when we finish wrestling with that, then we will be more informed to how to implement and guide students in the proper use of technology, rather than just focusing on how to ban or control the use of technology for students. Is a more holistic approach, the one that I would like to propose.
Excellent. Thank you. So while we're talking about educators, I'm going to move us to a question about recruitment, support, and retention of educators in Salem. Recruiting and retaining high-quality educators remains a challenge locally as it is across the state and nationally. We'd love to hear about the strategies that you would use to attract, support, and retain excellent educators and staff while addressing issues of workload, burnout, and ensuring that everyone has the opportunities for professional growth that they need. As part of that question, I want to hear your thoughts on how you would work to build a workforce that better and more accurately reflects the diversity of Salem's residents.
Okay, let me start with the entry point. So regarding recruitment and building the capacity of emerging educators to join the workforce. I would have to say that, as I mentioned in my introduction, Salem is already doing great things. And I think one of the great things that Salem is already doing is foremost really working on developing or growing your own internal pipeline. You have an intentionality about helping and supporting paraprofessionals, teaching assistants, educational support personnel into joining and being able to develop the skills and the expertise to join, hopefully, the classroom staff, part of the workforce. That is personally, that's kind of the way I approach it also in my current district. I am not too aligned with the state and the national this narrative that really focuses on increasing the number of students going to educational preparation programs. I think that when we look at the demographic, which is a declining number of U.S. residents of high school or college age, that is going to be a really uphill battle given those declining numbers, first. Second, the economy has changed a lot in the sense that, let's say Gen Zs and even millennials to some extent are more prone to switch careers and not stay in the same field for a long period of time. So because of that, those dynamics, I personally propose to focus more on career changers or people that are entering the profession maybe with older experiences. And I see growing your own, working on the people that you already have in your system in different roles is the kind of the best internal approach that you can do. This is a complex problem, so it needs a complex set of options. I think that obviously we will continue try to partner with higher ed institutions regarding the ed preparation programs. We will continue partnering with other community partners that have access to adults in the community that are interested in helping and working in the schools. And then once they're in our system, try to help them attain the licensure, help them in that process. Coaching and mentoring is crucial, especially with adults, to be able to have that persistency to continue stay in the process. That's also on the side of recruitment. I also know that Salem has been trying to use teacher exchange programs as a way to also supplement some of the hard to fill positions, especially that require language proficiency. I am a product of teacher exchange programs, so I also truly believe in that approach. I'm really interested in the way that Salem has been able to partner with the Dominican Republic regarding that, since and we presented this recently to the Board of Education. The state only has like official agreements with Spain and Portugal, whereas our population reflects more Latin America, including Brazil, in the case of Portuguese speakers. So it's a wonder, and I would be curious to see in the superintendent role how I could help facilitate those processes and enhance what Salem already has with the Dominican Republic, and see how feasible will be to also include bringing educators from Brazil, for example, and other countries represented in our community. I think the big question is, boils down to funding as well. And we have expressed to the state that, there has to be some kind of financial options for adults to not have to quit their full-time jobs in order to become full-time students, in order to attain the educational preparation to become a teacher. So we might need the support from either the state or the federal levels to kind of like be able to fund those initiatives. But in the meantime, I think that that's kind of the approach, because I think the way I look at the situation with the pipeline, with the workforce pipeline in my own district, and then obviously also in Salem, is that we have the human capital in our communities. And that's why it's so exciting for me to have the opportunity to come to Salem. Is I believe that we have the human capital that could help us, not going to solve the whole shortage, but it's going to help us for a significant part of our supply challenges. As far as the retention, kind of the other extreme, I don't know that there's a solution right now in a way to reduce the workload. I think educators across the country, every time I join a webinar or any conference, everyone is talking about the complexities of teaching today versus teaching, 25 or 30 years ago, or even shorter than that. I think that the problems are real. I think that we haven't had like a clear answer to the challenges. At first, we thought that the complexities of teaching was a result of the pandemic. The more that we are removed from the pandemic years, it's making us think that there are other actually deeper root causes. And I think that's the reality that we're facing, and we're trying to get smarter, understanding how to manage and behavior. We believe that a robust social emotional learning experiences for all students could help protect and mitigate some of the behaviors that are increasing that teacher burnout that educators are facing right now. And but I have just in closing, I have a different perspective of it. It might be maybe obvious and subtle, but I think that in the same way we talk about student belonging, we should also talk about adult sense of belonging. It's important that the adults in our educational community feel seen and respected. I believe that respect comes from the immediacy of each of the staff members. So as a superintendent, I will try to encourage all supervisors to really focus on making a connection with your staff members, not necessarily just assume that some roles are less important than others, but really have the same lens of getting to know people, not in the transactional way, like we are co-workers, you do your job, I do my job, but more in the personal way in which I get to know you and I see you and I value and respect who you are. I think that those are the things that could mitigate, not eliminate, some of the burnout, exhaustion that educators are facing across the country.
I'm going to switch topics here. And I'd like to ask you to speak about special education. You've talked a lot about inclusion and belonging, students and educators broadly, but let's really focus on special education and inclusion. And tell us about your philosophy regarding special education and inclusion for students. How would you support students with diverse learning needs, their families, and the educators who serve them?
I will offer a personal experience. So when I started my journey as a department head in one of my previous districts, I intentionally choose to teach the Spanish classes of that will have a higher number of students on IAP. And the reason why I wanted to do that was really from the department head lens for me to understand what is that experience like and be able to understand what are the barriers that need to be lowered or eliminated. In one of my districts, there was like a school within a school type of program that it was very selective about the academic courses that students will take in the mainstream curriculum, and world language used to be not one of those chosen subjects. By teaching those classes, I was able to really strongly advocate for students to not get language waivers based on IEPs, but really understand what was the learning profile of the student, and understand what are the things that we can do as a department curricularly to be true to inclusion and give them also a sense of belonging in world language. That was part of my most enjoyable years in teaching. I mean, it's not easy, it's hard. I mean, you have to do a lot of differentiation. So for the student who didn't want to present in front of the class, I would have to create assignments in which the student would just submit individual recordings to me. For the student that didn't feel comfortable in writing, I would offer for them to do speaking assessments. And so you kind of have to really, and that's the point of special education, individualize the experiences to make the curriculum accessible. And I think what drove me, and it's actually what is my guiding principle now, is that I truly believe that our students, even though that there are going to be some students that, because of their learning profile, will be uniquely challenging, that our students could learn an additional language. So first, that belief have to start with the educators. We have to believe that our students can learn, and the educational plan or services are ways for the students to access our curriculum. And when we provide multiple entry points to our curriculum, we can maintain our students exposed to the mainstream curriculum and to the high expectations and high quality curriculum that we have in the mainstream. So I truly believe that a student on an IEP is not a student that comes with an armor of not being able to access. A student with an IEP, for me, it comes with a plan to help us make our content accessible to them. So that is kind of my guiding principle and the framework in which I try to analyze every situation where access is being challenged or is not existing.
Thank you. I'm going to switch topics again and talk a bit about labor relations and collaboration. So, strong relationships between district leadership and employee unions are essential to a healthy school system. So tell us about the principles that guide your approach to district union relations overall, and what would you do when there's disagreement? How do you handle conflict?
So in other meetings and focus groups I had today, I have mentioned, and even in my interview, I mentioned an anecdote because I feel that it has been a foundational experience for me when I think about labor relationships within the school systems. I mentioned my personal story that when I was a world language district director, then my portfolio expanded, including the multilingual learner program as well. When that happened, one of the staff members, or department members, was actually the vice president of the union. So I was really apprehensive, and my level of insecurity rose to the roof, just because of simply the fact of being a black Hispanic male leading a department that was mostly white female. So I was like, oh, am I going to be under the microscope of the vice president of the union, seeing every single action that I will do, and then become like a labor dispute, even in my own department. So something that this person's name is Peter, just to say his first name. When we will have conversations, not animated, but just like, intensive conversations about, staffing, as a union, they were advocating for us to better staff our multilingual program at that moment, and also just curricular resources. In that advocacy, when things will get a little, not heated, but just like, okay, we're not really getting a stalemate, Peter will say, Jorge, come on, this is not that complicated. I mean, in the end, we are here just to teach kids. And every time Peter will say that in any kind of, regardless of the size of the meeting, small or big conversation, that will basically lower the temperature, and it will grant us into what really is the purpose. So I coming into labor relationships assuming that all educators are in this field because they care about students and they care about the families that those students represent. And we may have different ways of how do we get to that point, but I think that's the driving principle that I constantly remind myself, like disagreeing about the how, it doesn't mean that we're disagreeing about the what. We want the best for our students, and we just have to find ways to kind of find either commonality, either agreement in disagreement, and we try to hold that disagreement but not let it block to be able to move forward the conversation. And I think that really has helped me kind of modulate expectations, be able to remind myself when we are in conversations, not directly or indirectly about labor relationships. I think in the end, we all try to aim for the same purpose. And as long as we have these frequent conversations and transparent conversations with leadership so that there are no surprises on either side, I think is doable. It's not easy, but all the times, but I think it's doable because it's bringing parties that are interested in the best for our students.
Thank you. So the last question that we have prepared for you is about community engagement and trust. So it does very much build on what you were just saying around labor relations, but this is also the full community. As I'm sure you've seen in Salem, Salem is a city where we care deeply about our schools. So when you think about students, the families, the educators, the community organizations, the city leaders, the partners, we care about the school district. And you've also, I'm sure, seen people in Salem have a lot of opinions. There's a lot of big feelings here. So how would you approach building and sustaining trust and engagement with all of these different stakeholders, students, families, educators, organizations, partners? How do you build that trust? How do you keep them engaged? And how do you make sure that you are able to maintain a two-way conversation during good times and bad, when there's difficult decisions, differing perspectives, and just generally? How do you, what's your approach?
Thank you. What comes to my mind is an experience I had in one district when I started as the district world language director. didn't fully understand what was happening at that moment. So the middle schools in that district actually had three languages. They had Spanish, French, and Latin. And a year before I started, a decision was made to cut the languages to only one, and they were just offering Spanish. And here I come, boom, I start my year with that precedent. So the level of frustration was through the roof in the community because there was a cultural and a heritage legacy on why some community members felt strongly that at least French and Latin should be continued in the middle schools. It was to the point that the assistant superintendent had to offer like a evening forum for families. So here I come, understanding that what the community is seeing is they cut the languages to only Spanish, and here is the black Hispanic male. So therefore, he is happy that they're only offering Spanish. So that was like that moment when I realized that there could be no anticipated trust at that moment because everything I had in my presence was signaling distrust, frustration. So one of my guiding principles, and I mentioned this in a couple meetings and also in my opening, I really try to live by that principle of listening first and try to learn from that listening. So when there was my opportunity to kind of make a comment to this forum, I said to the parents, I hear you, I understand your frustration. Please allow me just some time for me to listen and understand what are the forces that led to this decision and really try to understand that ecology and the dynamic between the decision that was made and the reasons why the decision was made. People didn't even have an option at that point, so they had to really accept my proposal. But I tried to keep my promise by understanding and advocating for the families to the point that we were able to reinstate French into the middle school. We were not able to reinstate Latin because of the same forces that drove the decision to only offer one language. However, I tried to keep my promise by maintaining a Latin program viable at the high school. And to the point that I led an update of the curriculum, and also there was an opportunity after retirement. We were able to hire a Korean American teaching Latin. So the Latin program was getting reinvigorated and re-energized because of those changes. While I could not keep that promise at the middle school, I tried to make people see that I was true to my word, at least in what I could control, which was the high school level. And I think that experience has really stayed with me because in talking to the families, I told them, I come to this not as an expert that has a plan and don't think that this is my mysterious plan to only have your kids learn Spanish because I'm Hispanic, but I really come to this as a public servant. And in that public service attitude, just understand that I just need time for me to sit with the dilemma, try to explore options, and that is the promise I can make. That is not an anticipated decision that I'm making. I really try to make the decisions after I have understood the landscape of the situation. And I think that approach is the one I have applied to maybe to lesser scale situations with public trust, but that's something that really has stayed with me and has become part of my fabric as a leader. And I hope if I'm given the opportunity to kind of use that same approach if I'm here in Salem with you.
Thank you. So those are the questions that were submitted from the community. We have about 15 minutes left. We want to open it to people who are with us in the room or people on Zoom who might have some questions. But we do want to just have a few minutes of open mic if people want to ask additional questions or have follow-up questions. And if you do, we would ask that you come up to the microphone here.
First, I'm not sure, when I was on the Zoom, there was no Q&A or chat open, so I don't think that's actually an option.
Correct, just in person.
Thank you for being here and for your interest in our community. I'm sure this is not news to you, but in Salem, I took a look just today at the DESI website, and about 68% of our students are high needs, compared to 27% in Wellesley. 57% of our students are low income. Unsurprisingly, significantly less in Wellesley, it's about 8%. 17% English language learners, and compared to 3% in Wellesley. So I'm wondering if you can speak that our district, as someone who lives in Salem, has for a long time, I think it's hard to find a district much different from Salem than Wellesley. And I'm wondering if you can speak to why you think you are positioned to lead a district that's very different from where you've been for the last decades. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I just want to be candid. I mean, I know that that stands out of my credentials. I just want to, I would like to offer that my site of work on my resume doesn't speak about who I am as a person. I mean, I grew up in Panama City. I went to college in a city. Yeah, doesn't describe the dynamics of a public school in Massachusetts or in an urban community like Salem. But I just wanted to say that I have never given up of knowing where I came from and who I am. So because, as I mentioned, my same lens regarding students to be able to find their mission and find their passion, because I have stayed true to where I came from and who I am, in any of those spaces that one will see in my resume, including my current district, I have tried to advocate for the population that is higher represented in Salem. I think maybe a misconception in communities like the ones I currently work at is that the challenges of the issues are different. It's actually, at the core, they are essentially the same. So when we disaggregate the data in Metro West districts, one will find a story that is very similar to the one that we find in cities. In fact, Massachusetts as a whole is supposed to be a high-performing state, but when we disaggregate the data and we only look at Hispanics in Massachusetts, we could be ranked as 43 in the country. If only we look at the population, that is our performance, and that is including communities that the socioeconomic composition might be different from the one in Salem. So the challenge with that is that then the systems in districts that, like the one I work in, are not designed for those students, are not designed for those families. So to be able to advance and maintain and engage and advocate for those constituencies become actually uniquely, not different or higher or more or less, challenging as what we'll find in a place like Salem, because there are no infrastructure, there's no number pressure. So people, let's say with the English language learners, it is challenging to convince gen ed teachers that you have to use these strategies that you need to apply with English learners, when the answer is that, well, we only have one student. Whereas in other settings, the number kind of force you to do the right thing. So I think I have gained experience of advancing these projects and goals at the micro level, and I'm looking for the opportunity to see if I can extrapolate those skills and experiences to a greater macro level, but not necessarily because of the whole of the district I'm working with, but the uniqueness of the experience I had to be supporting, advocating for, and facilitating in those spaces. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Sí, buenas tardes. Bienvenido. Mi inquietud viene sí, respecto a los estudiantes con necesidades especiales. Tomé una nota aquí. La traducción sea buena. Sí, lo que tenía aquí escrito es que la verdadera inclusión no termina cuando suena el timbre de la última clase en las escuelas. Muchos de nuestros estudiantes de educación especial quieren y necesitan participar en deportes, en clubes, en actividades extracurriculares, pero muy a menudo por la falta de recursos adicionales, alguien soportes extras para estos servicios,
But very often, sometimes they don't have the traditional and the extra support for those services.
falta de personal, ese tipo de estudiantes que tienen muchas, podríamos decir, habilidades, se quedan fuera de esos.
And because of the lack of the staff, many of the students that have the ability or can have the ability, they are out, they are not participating.
Exactamente. Entonces, lo que queremos saber es cómo eso se puede mejorar según su experiencia y su visión.
According to your experience, I would like to know how we can make that possibility better and about envision as well.
Que más estudiantes con necesidades especiales que tengan las habilidades necesarias puedan participar en este tipo de extracurriculares, deportes.
The more students that have these kind of abilities, even though they have the disabilities, if they have more help from the staff, they can be able to be included.
Deportes, arte, ciencia.
Sports, art, science,
Esa es mi inquietud y bienvenido nuevamente.
that is what I want to know. What again?
So should I answer in English or in Spanish?
However you feel comfortable.
Okay, vamos a hacer
If you answer in English, it will be
yeah.
better for everybody, and I'll translate for him in Spanish because he's listening to me.
Okay, so I guess you will continue. Voy a responder en español si quiere traducir. Entonces, okay, gracias. Gracias por la pregunta.
Thank you for the question.
Es la primera vez que he escuchado esa pregunta de esa forma.
It's the first time that I have heard this question about in this form.
Y lo que me hace pensar es, como mencioné en la pregunta anterior,
It brings to my thought, as I mentioned with the prior question,
de las experiencias similares que puedo transferir.
of the similar experiences that I can transfer.
So, entonces, en mi experiencia, en mi contexto, tenemos un programa que se llama MEDCO.
In my experience or in my context, we have a program that is called MEDCO,
MEDCO, que es específicamente estudiantes de Boston que están estudiando en Wellesley.
that is specifically for students from Boston that they go to Wesley.
Y el problema que hay es similar en el sentido de que quieren participar en actividades extracurriculares.
The problem that we have or we face is that it's the same thing, that they want to participate in extracurricular activities.
En ese contexto, lo que yo he ayudado a hacer, lo que hacemos,
In that context, what I have helped, what we do,
contratamos personal, o sea, como dice usted, personal de las escuelas
we contract people, like personal staff from the schools
para que supervisen actividades extracurriculares
so they can supervise extracurricular activities
para los estudiantes de Boston que se quedan después de las clases en Wellesley,
for the students from Boston that stays after school at Wesley.
incluyendo el problema es el bus. Necesitan un bus, por lo menos en caso de Metco, para regresar a Boston tarde, después de las clases.
Including the bus, because, for example, the students from Boston need a bus and transportation to go back and forth to Wesley.
Eso tiene un costo
That has a cost.
y en el programa de Metco el costo lo paga un fondo del Estado.
And the program that Medcard is paid by a trust from the state.
So, lo que me hace pensar, no lo sé, si hay oportunidades de fondos estatales para ese tipo de costos, de personal.
It's come to my thinking right now that I really don't know if we have some funds of trust of bargaining from the state that will pay or will cover the staff that will work with them.
Pero gracias por la pregunta porque me hace pensar en cuál sería algo similar que pudiéramos explorar
Thank you
para
for
eso.
the questions because it brings to my mind what it could be something relatively, we'll say close or similar
Yeah.
to the approach.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
So we only have just a few minutes left, and I'd like to give Dr. Allen a chance to give some closing comments. But before I do, is there one last question? All right, I'm going to give you the floor back, and thank you again.
Thank you again for your time on a beautiful Monday. I know that there's so many competing opportunities to do something else at this time, so I really, really appreciate your time and your attendance. I want to thank Salem Public Schools. Personally, I have to say that the hospitality and the friendliness that I have experienced all day long has been top notch. I think that regardless of what this community decides about the outcome, I think this experience of today is going to stay with me for a long, long time. I think the thoughtfulness, and I want to appreciate also Heidi specifically just because she was kind of my contact person before today, and her patience and willingness to kind of make, I assume that all the three of us are so supported and confident of coming to Salem. I want to give public appreciation for that. Please know that you have superb schools and superb staff that really welcomes visitors like myself, and you should be very proud as a community of what you have here. In closing, I just want to say that I might not bring the perfect resume. I might not bring the perfect match to what one expects out of as the superintendent role, but I truly believe that I bring the dispositions and the attitude and the desire to join a great thing happening already, and I will appreciate and I will try to honor that trust if it's afforded to me to join your community and maintain the good things that you have, and hopefully similar to the question that I just had regarding special education, I really think that diversity also comes with diversity of perspectives and experiences. And I think that having experiences that are dissimilar to some extent to the new one that you're going to experience allows you the opportunity to kind of transfer, translate, see what could be possible in that new environment. The immigrant experience it's an experience that I find it that is actually empowering. I mean, in national context, is seen as a deficit to be an immigrant. But I think that when one moves from a setting to another setting, especially a setting that is very dissimilar to the one that you left behind, the creative juices started flowing, and the ability to see opportunities where the people that are in that environment cannot see, they are endless and boundless. And I think that as a country, the 250, I mean, we cannot cherish that experience, and I think that is the engine of this country. And I feel that as is when one transfers countries and nations, also when one transfers environments, that same energy kind of comes with one. And I just want to offer that to Salem, and I will be honored to join your community. But regardless, I am so happy to have experienced this day today with y'all. And please know that you have a great thing going on here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last thing, we do have a feedback form. So if people are here and want to scan the QR code or on Zoom, we would appreciate your feedback. I think this will help our process over the next several weeks. So thank you, everyone.